Hello, sorry about the technical difficulties. Um, yeah, I yoinked my earbuds and it made the stream starting soon stop playing. So I had a feeling that I need to restart OBS. So I restarted OBS. So sorry about that. Not that like anything worthwhile happened in that like 5 minute span, you know? Um yeah, we are live on Twitch. We're gonna get right back into our boat videos. I will get my I will get my boat smell book on standby for uh you know the amount of the boat huffing I'm expecting myself to do. Hold on a sec. But yeah. Yeah. Give me just one moment and I'll have the video up. Let us see. Perfect. Oh, did I not? I'll be okay. Looks like an officer space to me. Not sure exactly where we are in the ship. I've been on this ship. This is the USS Kidd. This is where we left off last stream. So these are officer spaces aboard the destroyer. And that is a 5-inch gun hoist right there down the hall. So I can imagine this is like a center amidships as it comes. Or center line, excuse me, not center amidships. That's a specific location. It's a really specific spot.
I heard some over there.
I heard something over there. This guy's awesome though. There we go. We can see the hoist. I'll go into some detail on this hoist. Bathroom. Head. Something about ladies on the sign there.
What was that?
Last stream I was talking about Eagle Scout projects. They did have a lot of the shells were painted by Eagle Scout project volunteers on the kit in particular in recent years. I don't know. Let me check the year of this video. 2019. Yeah. These are definitely painted by Eagle Scout volunteers. So that's where I believe the powder goes up on the right and the shell goes up on the left. I think. That or they can go up interchangeably. I forget exactly. There's the powder. There. Okay. So, okay, I'm understanding this better now. I have to pull up an image for myself so I can see this better. I could get my book, but it's too far away. Fletcher class. Out away. I get to get a nice good look at this. Come on, internet, give me something good. It's literally perfect. 50 cold storage, 54. This is not what I want. Ice machine, 53. Cruise quarters, 52. Passage vegetable, 51 is ammunition here. Oh, okay, that's okay. What is 9? Storeroom. Interesting. It is different than I thought it was. Okay. Well, I had to look at the internals of the ship real quick. See how wrong or dumb I was. Because there's a hoist underneath the floor there. If that's the handling room, it's kind of strange. Because there's no ammo stored. At least based on the diagram I saw beneath that deck. It's all sort of above waterline for the most part.
A lot of it's cracked too, which I don't like that at all. Hey, how come you don't want to go without me? Let me ask you this, bro. Is it creepy in here?
There's the hoist in
Especially with the music.
Well, even without, I kind of like the music. I think the music helps it not be as creepy.
You have a debate on that.
We're supposed to go down there and up there.
Yeah, but we're not following the arrows.
I'll go back up.
I wonder if the new building at
Just hold up a second.
Disregard. It is kind of similar to the trains, now that you mention it. Like the Harry Potter train. Kind of like that. It's the only train that I know anything about. This destroyer, as a destroyer, is stupidly cramped. So it's not really fully representative of like every ship ever, you know? That is a plotting. No, that's a fire control room, I believe. Yeah. Because you notice all the switch.
Hey, you can go ahead and go up, bro. I'm gonna go up right here.
Now we're back on top deck.
Those are definitely some steep steps right there. Going up is easier than going down.
Is it?
Wanna go up? Go up and see if there's anything more right there besides that one room.
There is more up there. It's the goddamn superstructure, dude.
Yeah, it leads to outside.
Looks like we're at the sonar is. Or some of the sonar stuff. Something, I don't know what that sound is. Yeah. Looks like the sonar room. Going up is usually easier than down. For hacking? Down is always easier for me. And then again, I don't go on inclines like that while I'm hiking, so. There's a spotting glass. So here we are up on the bridge. Helm. I think that's a practice mount for the leg mounts. Various searchlights and other things, signal lamps. We are looking out over the bow. You can see one of the many barges of the Louisiana River, or not Louisiana, what am I saying, Mississippi River. Compass. Smokestack. video is loud or I'm quiet? I mean, I can move closer. Let me check my levels. Yeah, I think this video is just kind of loud. I'll turn it down. Thanks for telling me. Tell me that every time, please. Here's a 40mm mount. Is he gonna sit in it? Come on, be a big boy. Sit in it. It's not blocked off. You can touch it. He's allowed to touch it, but it's not like blocked off and all. Yeah, that should be better. I think. Let me know. I think we just saw a torpedo tube. There's another 40mm mount with the radar on it. Is that one of those Bokers? Yes, they are Bokers mounts. There's the torpedo tubes. I believe that Kid only has one quintuple torpedo tube launcher. If I recall, I think it just has one. A lot of Fletchers just have one. Some of them have like an AA mounting in that spot, where they have like one less gun and an AA mounting and stuff. You look at World of Warships and look at all the Fletchers in there, you'll find a ton of variability in like how they're set up. There's a couple reasons for that. So why wasn't radar adopted earlier by some of the countries during/before World War II? That's a complicated question. Radar's kind of hard to make. It only like it's a very by the time of World War II, it's very new. Like it's only a couple of years old. Most of like the American battleships didn't like enter the war with radar for at least not air radar. I think most ships had some degree of air radar. But for like surface search, much less common, much harder to make, I think. If I remember correctly, I might be wrong. But like, some countries just never wound up investing in it. Like Japan never really invested in it. They had really good optical sights. They like went hard on that, but they did not spend too much effort on radar, even though they had access to like the best radar in the world. That they captured from Britain at the time when they invaded Singapore. Their bicycle battalions. These like stolen bicycles, if I remember correctly. Mess. I'm gonna pause it. So you'll notice all along the sides of the mess, because during the war, you're gonna have way more men than you'd have on in peacetime anyway, because you have to have all the guys manning the gun, the gun tubs. I believe that manning a Boker's mount is like even like a twin mount is like a 4, 5, 6-man job, because you gotta have like the officer, and then you have to have I think you have to have an officer. And then you have the 2 guys who are manning it, and then you have the 2 guys who are loading it. And then you might have 1 or 2 extra guys. So just for one of those mounts, you need a ton of dudes. I think you need like 30 people for each 5-inch gun mount, I think. I should be able to find the figures, but you can see here on the right, there are, and on the left here, next to the table, there's bunks. Even through this passageway, you see bunks, 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 bunks. As far as the eye can see, just so many bunks, because they need to have so many guys. They have to put them into spaces that aren't even normally sleep spaces. Because they can be accommodated. They can accommodate everything they need. I guess even on top of the table at that point. Somebody's sleeping on the table.
I really was. I'll never forget. My mom told me when the old vet gave me that first slap, she said, there's gonna be a lucky colt.
But generally, if like they just didn't have radar, they either didn't have the stuff to make it. And good coin's better than the floor, but the floor is needed. That's true. Very true. Um, it's just generally, if you didn't have radar like your Japan, it's just because you just didn't make it that much. Japan had it, Japan made it, but they didn't make a lot of it, and it wasn't as good. Britain used radar extensively, as did the U.S. Germany went like kind of nuts with radar. They did pretty good. They had it on planes earlier than the Allies did, I'm pretty sure. I don't know anything about Soviet radar, like, at all, so I can't tell you anything there. I don't think France really had a good opportunity to develop radar in a meaningful capacity. That's like it for the major powers. Italy, I don't know anything about Italian radar during World War II either. I would assume like non-existent. An easy way to check like what ships had radar, if I type in like Roma battleship, and then I click the Wikipedia page, from the brief description you get on the right side and like the big characteristics thing, there's nothing about radar. So these 1937 battleships didn't have it as built. They just had various optical. No results for radar on the page for the ship. If I go on the classes page, there's nothing about radar under characteristics. Control F radar. Nothing about radar. So a lot of the time it'd be like the turret, really wide rangefinders that like come out the sides of a turret. Or something else similar. Optical fire control is not really bad. You just have to be able to see stuff good. Radar is just much more reliable and accurate and faster. Walking back through a lot of similar places to before, maybe through the same places. I don't know what's going on here. I'm crunching. Crunch, crunch. Cut. It's machinery space. Something, I don't know what this is. This is
I
part
don't
of the...
think that rigid shop vac is correct for the era.
Yeah, I got this too.
What you eating, anime boy? I'm eating pizza goldfish. I'm almost done. Hey, there's a 5-inch gun hoist. I don't know why it's like coming out of here, but there's the hoist. They're not in the turret. I think they just might be a hoist in the deck. I don't remember correctly.
Oh, it is hot in here, dude. It's like way
The
hot.
bathroom sucks. This is where they actually want you to pee at the museum. Like, this is where you're supposed to go to the bathroom, and it's hot as hell because it's, you know, Louisiana.
I think all that heater is doing is blowing that asbestos around.
There's the tro. You want to poop in the tro.
Can you get out back here?
You think Virginia sucks? Me too.
35.
Here's another 5-inch storage room. This is for like these are for the super firing mounts, so the ammo handling room isn't below deck like the other ones. It's on the same deck as like deck level, which is very weird, in my opinion. This is a really cool space on Kid. I don't know how in detail this guy's going to show it because he seems to just kind of run through things. But on the Kid, they have like this exhibit in this like crew birthing space, and it's just full of like artifacts and stuff from a bunch of other Fletcher class destroyers. Like there's like artifacts from like hundreds of them, and like It's so cool. It is such a cool area. Because there's like stuff for like 2 Fletchers underneath each of those. Like, look at all this. Like, here's stuff from like 3 different Fletchers, just all piled up here. Little bits and bobs of metal, and like a photograph of each one. It's so cool. Piece of like a kamikaze fragment, I think. Like tons of little bits and bobs from all these ships. And then something about each of them. It is such a cool little exhibit. I don't know why I appreciate keeping a piece of a kamikaze plane. A little piece of Japan at home. You can just get a Nendoroid if you want that so badly, dude. Might be easier to come by in the present day, but for museum purposes, that's a very interesting artifact to have on a ship for your museum. This is a generator, I think. Love the hatch between bunks. There's the hoist. Here's that space again. But I was gonna look into any of the little compartments there. In like when the ship was in service, this is where people would put their personal belongings, was in those little boxes. And so that's not much of those personal belongings, but still. This guy's posting high-res photos and like YouTube, his video processor will tolerate. Lots of kitchen pics, dude. That's a good pic. It's really loud again. Turn down this music. Plotting, navigation, something. You would like to have been a ship cook like Sanji? That would be a pretty cool job to have. This museum is nice because it doesn't have any scary dummies, probably because they'd melt. Because this ship does not have good AC. If any AC. These guys completely neglect in their, this video. Kid has an ice cream machine that was not supposed to be on the ship from 1942. So one of the big luxuries, American ships were known for having luxuries that a lot of other countries did not include. For a number of reasons. One, U.S. ships were expected to go a lot further without like having brakes than other ships. Like if they needed to refuel, they would have to go to an island base or something, or all the way back to like San Diego or Pearl Harbor at times. So it wasn't an oiler. So they were designed with that in mind. It would have other luxuries like ice cream machines or more space for the crew, less cramped, better amenities in general. Versus like British ships, and the British are like, crew shouldn't have this kind of amenities. We want them to be miserable all the time because they're British and they're evil. So they didn't have that on their ships very much. But usually destroyers would not have an ice cream machine. They were not allotted an ice cream machine. Somehow, and it's not quite known how, Kid got one. It wasn't like scavenged. No. It's a General Electric. I can actually, I have a picture of it on my phone. I don't know if I feel like sending it to myself to put it on stream. But give me a second here. Louisiana. Where is it? I have pretty good pictures of this ice cream machine. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, it's a General Electric uh ice cream machine, 440 volts. Does not say too much other than like the manufacturing stuff and this really awful blurry phone picture I have of it. I feel like I should have taken a better picture than that, but this is a pretty cool thing to have on a ship. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. It wasn't scavenged. Yeah, they even have like the instructions, like little plated on thing that says how to make the ice cream with the machine. But yeah, usually that's something that like an aircraft carrier or a cruiser or a battleship would have at least one of. Depth charges. This is neat that they have so many of them. You can see all the racks still. But yeah, there's a. It's not supposed to have an ice cream machine, but they got one anyway. Probably some crew members stole it and nobody complained, including the captain. You've never seen what a depth charge look like? They come in a couple different shapes. They don't just look like this. Let me go back to one. They don't just look like this. They can come in like a very canister type shape. It just depends on the way that they get launched too. Some depth charges are like smaller and they get shot off the side. These are the kind that get rolled off the back. They just get pushed off by gravity. So let me grab our next ship because we are on the next ship. So next up is the USS Alabama, which I have never been to. Something simple, but just saying 300 pounds TNT. The whole thing weighs way more than that much. Oh, the total weight is 300. My bad. Yeah, they're very heavy. A lot of the weight that isn't TNT is just so it sinks faster. Because you don't really need that much steel to hold 200 pounds of TNT. You'll see a DB3. Oh, I had this started for a little bit. Okay. We are not watching this in 4K. We have it in 1080p 60. You guys are watching it in 720p 30. Alabama class battleships were kind of interesting because they're meant to be cramped. These guys followed the North Carolina, which is less cramped, and they tried to make a ship that was better in a lot of ways. And the best way they could think of to do that was to squeeze it all together and make it smaller so you can fit more on the same weight. And it has a lot of interesting features that a lot of other battleships don't have. You'll note right here that there's like a gap between the deck and like part of the hull. Favorite brown ship girl. It's an interesting sentence to say. So there's a bunch of different places here where it can be refueled to make refueling easier. This also saves weight somehow, I think. But there's a ton of little tubes for refueling because the belt is on the inside of the ship instead of on the outside, like a lot of other battleships. But you'll see how close together everything is. The superstructure is tiny. There's one stack. There is all the secondary guns are really close together. Like there's kind of like scarily close together here. It is not a perfect design at all. Missed battleships just bristling with guns. I mean, there's stuff similar that kind of still exists, other than like, you know, battleship museums. One thing that I find really interesting is the absolute size of like a quad Bofors mount with the shield and a gun tub around it. It's almost as large. Let me see if I can get it the way for them to swing the camera around so you can see both. It's almost as large as the 5-inch mount. Like it's almost the same width, including the tub. It doesn't actually mean that you could fit a 5-inch mount on here at all. Do it. Visit Iowa. Visit all the museum boats. They need it. They need the money, and they need your attention and love. Um, Obviously you can't fit a 5-inch gun here because you have to put the ammo under the hull, and there isn't space under the hull for that, so they didn't do that. This is just something you bolt onto the deck and put an ammo locker like here somewhere. Also, when the ship was built, they had to take weight into mind. They probably could have put one there, but they did not want to because they didn't want to break the treaty, even though they probably could have gotten away with it if they felt like it. One crane on the back. I think when launched she had two. Might be wrong. A bunch of Oricleans. And you are, unlike on Kid, allowed to fiddle with these a little bit, I think. They might be welded in place, though. They are arranged very straight. There's a catapult. You can see here that the ship had two at one point. And one was removed for whatever reason, possibly weight savings. After all the stuff they added on during the war. Because they added like a bajillion AA guns onto the ship. As designed, she only had like 4 quad mountings of 28mm guns for the AA battery. And then she wound up with like 56 40mm and like 58 20 mils. No climbing. Don't put your kid on this. They will get hurt. Some museums let you play with these mounts, which is always fun. There's the crane for lifting float planes out of the water. Imagine the seagull poop. Museum ships have like a couple ways to get that to not be as much of a problem. One, I don't see any birds flying here. Probably because it's a hot day out in Alabama. But sometimes they install like spikes on certain surfaces that birds like to roost on and sit on, so that they don't go poo-poo everywhere. 16-inch 45 Mark 6 with a 40mm gun tub on the roof and a training mount, I believe, as well. Here's yep, 1989 is when that was presented. On all the other places, there's the location of every single one of Alabama's battle stars, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a 16-inch shell there. It's as tall as this woman. It's taller than her. He's short, lol. There is, here is one of those rangefinders I mentioned. Inside the turret, there's like this long thing that goes across the back that you can see through. There's like an optical port that you can put your eyes through, but it also feeds into the computer. There's some writing there. I don't think he's going to look at it with the camera, though. Sucks. Various booms and other things. That is how you get into the turret. A lot of the time, if the turret had the room for it and had like an overhang, the entrance to the turret would be through a tiny little trapdoor in the deck. And they're in the floor of the turret. This sucks to get into, dude. if it's that low to the ground. On the Iowas, it is not that low. Because they have a slightly higher up our bet, because weight savings are a little bit less of an issue, and you could put more comfort into the ship. This is like a less comfortable ship than the other American battleships by a pretty decent degree. Because they try to cramp everything together. But that's like a foot and a half. You have to like break your back to climb in there, dude. And you can't like come in from under like a 4 down. You have to come in through there if you're going to be in the turret at all. There's some kind of like sight thing on the back there. I don't know what that was. See that there? I don't know. Is it a gun sight? I guess it might be. It looks like a big what's the one in Battlefield? Hollow sight? Another quad brokers. These things are cool. You just drop the ammo straight in the little hopper there, and it loads. You don't need to use a clip at all. You could use a clip, but I think you can just dump it in. That might actually be a later mounting than these. That you can just dump it in, actually. It's a pretty cool feature wherever it appears. Guy coming out of the tour entrance. So as we enter this this superstructure space, we can see that it's significantly more open than any space that we've seen on any of the ships so far on these streams. Like this alone is like the size of like the mess hall on the Kid. And this is just like a general space where stuff is done. I don't know what it was for historically necessarily. There is some significant armor here. I don't know what that was, but there was a lot of armor there. Now we're going down the deck, so we're going to be underneath the weather deck now. We're seeing various machine and tools, I think. This looks like a bunch of tools to me. I have not been on any ships from this class. I have been on North Carolina and New Jersey, though. They are a little bit different from this ship. In a not small amount of ways. This looks like a room for... This doesn't look like an officer's room. That might be an officer. So the hallways are still small. But that's normal. Engineer's office. So these ships have enough space for like straight up offices and stuff. Like a substantial number of them. Machine room. Is this your first exposure to the inside of this ship then? It is. I haven't actually seen the insides of most of these ships other than the Kid. So, there's like a hoist here. This looks to me like one of the 5-inch gun hoists. But I might be wrong. That just the ammo comes up. Just protruding from the floor in the middle of the hallway. This is an uptake for the engine? Is that what that says? Oil and water... Something. Oh. That looks like something where steam comes out, or the smoke comes out, not the steam. What is this, the drugstore? Maybe that wasn't what that is. I don't know. Could just be like a ventilation shaft. Oh, that's right. For whatever reason, because it's such a cramped ship, the Alabama class does not have the accommodations for the same kind of ventilation that other ships had, like North Carolina. And so they had to use some kind of like wacky internal ventilation system that wasn't as good. It kind of made less sense to me because you think internal ventilation is a lot better than like having portholes open, but your mileage may vary. There's another scary mannequin and a hatch in the floor. I don't think this is an armor deck. This is just the structural deck for, having a floor. Here's the chapel. Hey, he showed us the sign. He's up and over that. He's reading it hard with his camera in the way. If the ship had space for a chapel, it has a chapel. They are supposed to be non-denominational, but I mean it's America in like the 1940s. These ships were large enough to have divers. In many cases, this is weird. This is like what? There's a hologram of like some guy just looking down.
Understood. Good job down there. Looks like he's down there for the day. Now we have to get Clarence up before he absorbs too much nitrogen into his blood and gets the bends. It's just one of the many dangers Navy divers face while trying to get the job done. Thanks for stopping by and having a look.
You gotta get Clarence out of there, dude. So as you can see, battleships have room for this kind of exhibit. New Jersey's is just like, here's a guy with like the SpongeBob diving suit on. In like this room, you can look through glass to see him. But I guess Alabama has a little bit more space for that. And I do say Alabama is cramped, but it's cramped compared to other battleships. It's not cramped compared to like other ships. Usually the hallways that go across the ship are a lot thinner than the ones that go along the ship. Because they're not as often used. Navigator storeroom. So this is where all the charts are, as it says on the sign. I'm gonna huff some boat smell right now. Oh, that's the good stuff. Oh. Oh yeah. Boat smell. Boat smell. Man, do I have a hangnail again? Man. I'll deal with that after the stream. I won't get up and get my flippers, they're right here and I really want to. Radar? Yes, radar room.
The Combat Information Center was
the CIC, excuse me, yeah.
Here,
Combat Information Center.
By visual means, sonar, radar, and radio came together. Was evaluated.
I don't think Alabama has a sonar though.
And personnel as appropriate. When required, the activity
Because usually it would be with ships that have one.
Commanding officer in search and rescue.
That's the idea anyway. When they were designed, there wasn't. So for some design history, since I literally just read about the history of this, the American battle line up to this point was 21 knots in speed. That's like 23 miles an hour, I think. That was the top speed that they could go. And so America was like, wait a second, no, maybe it's a good time to go faster, since it would make sense that everything's going to be faster in the future. So we should make something that can like keep up with aircraft carriers and also just like be fast, like the German Deutschland class cruisers. They're such a big threat to shipping. And so they ended up making the North Carolina, which is fast. And then huge debates ensued where they're like, okay, so should we go back to 21 knots on the next ship? Because North Carolina is supposed to be special. It's not supposed to be the standard for everything. But they decided to keep with it. And then they built the Iowas, which are also supposed to be special. And then they'd go back to the North Carolina speed after, or slower, potentially. But they decided against that as well, since they didn't end up building any more battleships past the Iowas. But coincidentally, that made these ships kind of funny as like the possible commerce raiders, since they have insane amounts of range because of all the oil they have. and their high degree of fuel efficiency. Just necessary since America didn't have a ton of bases everywhere to refuel like Britain did. Why would they make special unique ships like designing Sonic OCs? Because most ships are like a response to something else in a way. There is like an environment that ships are designed like around. They're designed for a purpose. Usually, like the New Mexico and Tennessee kind of classes, they're kind of like duplicates of each other. That's just because they wanted to build more ships and they slightly modified the design to make it better. But generally, like the idea is, okay, so these guys are building a ship like this, so we should build a ship like this that can do these things. It's not like Sonic OCs in the sense that they just kind of make something up. There's like a ton of debate that goes into it. The Friedman books talk about this in detail, especially the battleships one. But the idea was like, well, other ships are going faster, so we should probably have ships that are fast as well. Speed helps you dictate like the maneuvering better. Like you can get around the enemy and you can control the range that you're being shot at to your advantage and things like that. And as it turned out, most of the Japanese battleships, in fact, I think all of them were faster than the American ships of our battle line, which they only found out after they designed North Carolina, and then they like wiped sweat from their brow because we didn't know that Nagato was a 26-knot ship until 1938, and was significantly better than most of what we had in that regard. And that the Congos were 30.5 knots. We are inside the barbette now, so it's just an army of these 16-inch shells. There's a hoist, I think. They're painted different because they're a different type of shell. You know, one's armor piercing, one's high explosive, more or less. Those are the only types I think this gun has. You can check though real quick if I can find my link. Here it is. 16-inch, Mark 5, no. Mark 6. Mark 8? Oh, okay. Yeah, they just fire high explosive and AP. Now, Iowa is kind of nutty with its shells that it can carry, but that's a whole nother matter. Like, they have the nuclear shell, but that's like a special thing. Before mutually assured destruction was an idea that people were thinking about, they were just all about those tactical nukes and shit. They just love tactical nukes. Yeah, it turns out something that is 16 inches wide and like 5 feet long is large enough to fit a nuclear warhead that has like a 20 kiloton yield. And it turns out that you can shoot that out at something for a range of like 15 miles. It's pretty handy. I think it's actually more than 15 miles. Iowa gun range. Battleship, not like locations. 24 miles. Yep. I usually look at it yards and meters when I look at gun ranges, so I can't really transmute that to miles very well, even though you could with meters. Definitely not with yards. This is probably one of the better defended places in the ship. You can see that circle there, that's the rotating space. That's where the gun rotates. I would assume the nuclear shell was never used. Not in combat. I think it was tested at least once. Um, Usually if they make a new special nuclear warhead or delivery device, they test it. Especially when that was around. Iowa nuclear shells. Oh, the W-19, aka Katie shell. It's a narrowed down shell. I think. Oh, the W-23, okay. Production in 1956, 50 total made. It is 16 inches. 20 kiloton yield, 15 to 20. It's not really known if that one was tested. There's. I'm going to put a picture up. These are some fire control things, I'm pretty sure. But I'm getting this image real quick. I'm going to pause the video. I don't know, they might not be fire control if they have dials like that. Image, browse. Should be main. This is the smaller version of this shell being tested for the 11-inch gun that we had, like a heavy field gun during the 50s. That is that being tested. That's a pretty big boom. And that's a really cool fucking picture, dude. That shit is metal. Fuck. But there's that. I don't know if they were used. So basically, Iowa or New Jersey / Iowa. All the Iowa class was like being deactivated when these were entering service for the ships. So it's not really super. Seeing if there's anything that says if they were used ever. They don't detonate on impact. They detonate in an aerial burst, like at a certain altitude. I'm pretty sure. It's not super useful against ships. Airbursts aren't that good, as they found out during the not Trinity, the other ones, the post-war test on ships. They nuked a bunch of ships twice. And airburst nukes don't work too good against ships unless they're really close. They just kind of wreck all the stuff above deck and irradiate the ship, and that's about it. Which still sucks. That is a mission kill. But that doesn't sink ships. An underwater nuclear explosion, however, will just absolutely destroy everything in its path. That's the real hotness. The nuclear torpedo. That's where it's at, dude. Ew, dentist. Dentist with the giant, like, centipede mandible device. Ripping your head apart so they can pull your teeth out. Ugh. Compartment map of the ship. For the tour route. Hitting a submarine with a nuclear torpedo would be such overkill. Do I have the thing for you? If you remember those depth charges earlier? Remember the depth charges? This is also a sick picture. So there is this weapon called ASROC. It is a missile and torpedo launcher box. One of these, it can carry several missiles. It is a very useful box. It can carry just normal missiles. It can carry ground-to-air missiles, surface-to-air, I mean. And it also fires a anti-submarine torpedo that has a nuclear charge in it, and normal anti-submarine torpedoes. So here it is next to a Gearing or Allen M. Sumner class destroyer that has been retrofitted to have a helipad post-war, and also replaces torpedoes with a ASROC launcher. So there's like that. That's a, that's one way to do it, and I think it's also helicopter dropped nuclear depth charges. They can be dropped by patrol planes such as the P2V Neptune. During the Falklands War, Britain's naval task force carried 31 nuclear depth charges. Jesus. Most countries got rid of them by the 90s. China, France, Russia, UK, and US withdrew nuclear depth charges from service. So they're no longer a thing. And the nuclear shell isn't a thing either anymore. Only 50 of those were made, and they were all discarded. So they weren't as present as the nuclear depth charge. And the nuclear depth charge does not preclude. It does not preclude mutually assured destruction, necessarily. So this circle, if you see a circle in a battleship, like in the hallway, that is 100% you're going around the barbette of the main guns. Scary dentist room. Or haircut, maybe. Yeah, scary dentist room. Scary mannequin dentist. The Iowas actually have their dentist stuff in like the same spot, right next to the barbette for one of the turrets. The Iowa class, and I would assume since they're almost the same size and weight, the Alabama and North Carolina's turrets each weigh over 1,000 tons. I think it's like 13, 15, 1,600 tons, which is massive. The ships themselves tend to go from like in actual like combat weight, not design weight. North Carolina, Alabama, and Iowa are 35,000, 35,000, and 45,000 tons as ideally designed, but in combat use, which is a different measurement from how their combat load, which is a different measurement from the standard measurement system that was used. They're like 43, 44, and like 53, 56,000 tons fully loaded for the whole ship. Here's another barbette, so that looks like they were just next to the second or first one. Can't really tell where we are unless it says like painted on the wall where they are. You can see there that those doors are made to be watertight. You can turn the wheel to seal them. This is like a shaft that they would use to lower things through the deck and get them under deck. Like if you need to reload ammunition, you'd have to send it down here very carefully and slowly. So it is a lengthy process, but it's something that like takes a day or two. It's not something that's like that bad. Bing Crosby. Meeting room, it seems. Got poker in there. I don't know if that's allowed. I don't think you can play poker in the service. You're noticing that not all these doors are watertight. They're not really meant to be. What use is like a watertight officer's cabin? It is kind of spooky. But you'd imagine in service it's a lot less spooky because, you know, there's a bunch of like there's like 3,000 men milling about doing their tasks, you know, a lot less spooky. So as you can see here, we are at the main armor deck. You can tell that this is where the thickest deck armor is, because you can see that this hatch here, it has a slope so that it closes fully and in a good way, and is many inches thick. So this is like a 30-ton door or something insane like that. It is a very heavy door. Here's like a little exhibit on the Marines in World War II, it seems. There was a Marine detachment aboard like all US battleships. Usually they'd like have like a space so they could be there for defense if somehow guys got onto the ship, which isn't like something that ever really happened except if you were a destroyer and you rammed a submarine. Or if just to man a 5-inch gun mount or a single gun in a turret or something else like that. On New Jersey, they manned a gun mount for the 5-inch guns. And that's because like the Marines and the Navy are like best buds. Aircraft identification thing, just kind of there. It's kind of a weird place to put that. You're below deck, but go off, I guess. My goodness. Anyway, Otakon is in like, I'm gonna be at Otakon in 2 days. Almost exactly 2 days from today, I'm gonna be getting my badge. So you guys, I have a panel on Saturday of the con. Come to Otakon, meet Sorrel, I'll give you magic cards that I signed. Because that's like the only thing I have that I can sign. Gonna have your own panel? I am having my own panel. There's a Japanese soldier, it seems. Yeah, I am gonna have my panel. I'm gonna try to make it to all the VTuber panels, but I might skip one. There's only 2 other panels about VTubers. One's hosted by a girl who goes by Evie, Evie, and she does idol coaching, I think. So she's talking about like idols specifically, I think. And then if you guys know S-Pro, she's there's a Bofors mount that's being restored or something, or just on display. Like this is how they fix it. And there's actually more Bofors equipment, it looks like here. Because to me, this looks a lot like the gun barrel. Right over here. And then there's going to be someone who's doing like a mystery panel. I have no idea who's doing it, but someone else is doing a VTuber panel. Those are some 20mm gun barrels, it seems. You can see all the different shell types there. Rounds. Because, you know, there's tracer round, there's the incendiary round, there's the explosive round, all that stuff. Fortunately, you're in Florida. Well, you have it's a 12-hour drive. Only a 12-hour drive on the weekend. Overnight. There's not going to be that many other VTubers that I know there. Good buddy Strategos Lucianus is going to be there. And that's like basically it. A couple other VTubers are going to go at some point. Like Mint Castella was going to go, but she had to change her plans months ago. As evidenced by her Twitter tweet about canceling a hotel. But it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast. My panel presentation is almost... I did everything I need to do in my presentation. I'm just waiting for my co-presenter to finish it. Sure, you'll end up meeting the ones who go. Oh, definitely. They will go to my panel, and I would like to mention Boat Smell, but I don't know if I will. I don't know if I can fit that into the panel. Yeah, don't really mention Boat Smell. I mean, I can bring the book. If need be. There's plenty of viewers going to Otakon. If you'd like to meet other viewers, anyone who's watching. I know you're not going as your rats, but... What are those cages by the door sometime? Let me go back. These? These are for, like... These are like stretchers and stuff, I'm pretty sure. Stretchers and like sleds to carry stuff up the ladders with, to transfer things between ships. I'm pretty sure they're stretchers. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. And you need a bunch of them, considering that a bunch of people could get hurt. Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at Twitter. Just seeing if there's any other VTubers going. Real quick. So much ship ambience. What do you mean, even though it's not on? What does that mean? Wait, what? A VTuber going by Imp Error is going. I don't really know who that is, but it's someone who's going. How many people do art for VTubers in the Artist Alley? I'm closing this now so I can actually pay attention to the boats. The ship's not running, right? It is not. The ship is not running. They're receiving power from off-board the ship. But there are things like the AC running, and they might be playing ambiance over the speakers if you're not hearing people walking. There's the sloping side of the ship. Not actually the side of the ship, I believe. That might just be the armor belt behind there. There is a massive air conditioning, a modern air conditioning unit right there to keep the inside nice and cool. There's not space for that kind of thing on the destroyers. Tons of dishware and cookware. And was that an egg shaped? Is that like an? What is that door? What the hell is that? It looks like a squash. Bizarre. Maybe we'll get a better look at it later. Again, tons of room for exhibits. And this would have been like a crew berthing or something else. So we get to see what people's positions are. I think this is about different things like that, patches and stuff. Just wires, not a squash door? It looks like a squash door to me. Why would it, I don't know why it would be like symmetrical and wiry. If that were the case. Pretty picture. I'd love to get art like that and put it on my walls. I have a huge lithograph of the USS Constitution that I could put on my wall, but I just haven't gotten the chance. The villains couldn't go in the squash door anyway, true. Cameras. So I guess this is an exhibit on the watch. Which is a not small rating on the ship. Lots of people do watch. That was like a damage control locker there. You played a boat game last night, and now you hate boats. What boat game was it, and why do you hate boats because of it? Bowls for eating. It looks like they took a lot of the tables out of this space so you could sit easier. Crew berthing. So this looks like we're probably towards the stern here. Because that's where it is on Iowa. That's where a lot of the crew berthing space is. And a lot of the mess space. Like, they just don't even have stuff in here, so it's easy to walk around. I think they took it out. Or they stripped it so they could put it in other places on the ship. How are you doing today, Goo? Aside from that, aside from hating boats now. We're almost done this video. I actually need to find another after. The brig. Don't be a bad boy. Or else you have to sit in this like little seat. You can't even like lay down in there. Oh, maybe you can actually. They actually kept the mess going. To a degree, they do on the New Jersey. They do keep that open. You can order a hot dog sometimes. I don't know if you can during COVID times, but you can on New Jersey. And if like you're doing an overnight visit with like a scout troop or something, they will serve you dinner. I think. It's not like great food at all. And it's not like historically accurate necessarily. Well, it might be accurate to like the 80s or like 1991 or whatever, but you know. It's a Game Boy Color fishing game, JRPG. Navigating the ship is 100% currents and wind. It's awful. Yeah, navigating with wind and currents on the Game Boy Color sounds like dog poop. That sucks. Yeah, this is 100% somewhere where people slept. Photo development? Yep, photo development. Gotta have the red lights. It's like Stranger Things. You guys watch Stranger Things? It's just like that. But with 1940s cameras. And like... Surprised they have a room for that? They have to have a room for that if you're doing photo development. You gotta have a room for photo development. If you have the space, you have it. It's a very important room. Because it's not like a hobby thing on a ship. That's like important at times. For like journalistic purposes and stuff, but just other things in general. That was the store, you know, buy your candy bar, get your cigarettes there, sometimes. When you can smoke still in certain places. Never at night. On deck, at least. Here I have the cookware again. Buy a candy bar and get a free cigarette with it? Something like that, yeah. I'd imagine in service, there would have been a ton of like, you know, like lunch tables going through here. Oh, food storage! Looks like they've got some vegetables, some fruit. All canned, of course. Flour, potatoes. Usually potatoes are their own room, though, as we saw last year. They put potatoes in their own room a lot. If I remember correctly, Japanese heavy cruisers had a soy sauce compartment. I shit you not. Soy sauce Takao. Cruiser. Anatomy of the ship Heavy Cruiser Takao. These books are alright. They're not like super great. They're about like the internals of various ships, and so it's got various like diagrams of stuff. Is this on this picture? It is not on the picture from this guy from this review of the book. Control F soy. But yeah, they have a soy sauce compartment on the lower decks between frames 11 and 16 on the Takao class. This is my single favorite excerpt from like any battle report. This is from you can find this on, like, is it big enough to swim in? It's not like a tub of soy sauce or like a tank of soy sauce. It's just where they keep all the stuff. You can read through this yourself here at any time if you so desire. But so this is the account of the second naval battle of Guadalcanal. So it's between Washington and South Dakota battleships of the U.S. and the battleship Kirishima of Japan, and the heavy cruisers Atago and Takao. You're picturing an oil tank of soy sauce, or even a whole deck of it? Unfortunately not, but it has this wonderful, incredible excerpt. Atago takes her first hit to the starboard soy sauce store, which begins a fire on her bow. what real great stuff. That's thrilling stuff right there. Doing the soy sauce compartment is the Japanese magazine rack hit. No, that's they have the magazine rack hit as well, but I don't think it's too far from the soy sauce compartment actually, for the 8-inch gun magazines. I think this would be like frame 23 or something like that, like frame like 30 maybe at like the furthest back. Ships are divided into frames, which is what rooms sometimes follow, and those are like the cross longitudinal, or excuse me, they stretch across like the deck, left to right instead of back and forwards, and those are like what the ship's built on, and usually that's where rooms start and end, is along a frame, which is another big factor for space. You'll note here that the secondary guns are actually elevated, and they're not on the main deck because there isn't enough space on the main deck to put them there. In fact, there's barely enough space to walk. It's as thin as most of the compartments inside the ship along the side. Those are like ventilation tubes and shit, I think. Here we are at the bow. We're approaching, rather. Big turrets. And it appears that on the list of kills, Alabama has claimed an island. So a lot of ships have like a record of how many planes they shot down and stuff here. That's what all those little Japanese flags are, I believe, are planes. And there's also a kamikaze, I think, too, is what that plane there is. But also there's, you know, just an island. Interesting way to frame that. And also like various like medals, more or less, for battles and service. That's still a lot of planes. It's like 30 planes, dude. That's a ton of planes. Not insignificant number. Capturing an island? I've probably ever playing a role in like Iwo Jima or something. Cramped, they have to put stuff in between the turrets here. Not sure what that is. Looks like they put an AC up there in the modern day. Quintel is 30? Well, you can't see it. I'm gonna go back. They're gonna go into the turret here. But like there's 6 plus 28. It's 28. 28 airplanes. Oh, it didn't level an island for that medal? I mean, it could have. I don't doubt the ability of these ships to level an island. So there we go. There's a modern AC unit, so like Mitsubishi kind of thing. Not Mitsubishi. The other one that starts with M. They could do a lot of work in restoring the interior of this room, this space inside the turret. You can see how like hard it is to crawl up in there. You gotta like lean forwards and stuff. This long tube running across is that rangefinder I mentioned before. You can look into it from there, I believe. And there's an identical, almost identical, and much better conditioned version of this that you can look through on the North Carolina. Those doors lead to the guns proper. They are flash tight, flash proof, so if an explosion goes off in here, it doesn't affect the actual guns. Because this space is primarily for range finding and, you know, shooting good, while these other compartments are for each individual gun, for loading and all the operations of the guns. So no ammunition really comes through here. They might have stored some rounds in here, spare rounds, if they didn't feel like putting them below deck, or they didn't have space and they just needed more rounds. They theoretically could have put them in here. Maybe. But they would always pretty much keep the doors closed during firing. If you're in combat at all. The deck here is made of teak because teak is a wonderful metal, a wonderful wood. Like literally like the best wood for sea purposes most of the time. It's not good as armor, but it doesn't burn that good. And it also, it's good for keeping out the heat, and it doesn't get destroyed by seawater as fast as other woods do. It's just all around a really nice wood. Now that's hot as shit right there. You do not want to be barefoot on that. Would soldiers be on deck during firing? Well, they would have ear protection, for one. They would definitely have ear protection. But they would also... You can see here how... the anti-air guns that are on like the side of the ship that has gunfiring going off, they might not be manned, always, if the main guns are going off. Because these do produce blast, which is the, you know, strong force that goes out from the sides and the front and the top and the bottom of the gun barrel that could interfere with these things like being mannable at all. I believe there's a anecdote about them like doing tests with like pigs on the deck of Yamato, which has significantly larger guns than this, 18.1 inch versus 16. And like it ended up like shredding the pig. Yamato gun pig. Must include pig. I'm getting a lot of forum signatures. Yeah, I don't know where I've read this thing about a pig, but apparently they shredded a pig. You don't want to be near blast from big guns. Orifleons all along the bow. Anchor chain. But part of why those are so far back is so that if they were manned, there's a higher degree to which you could stand there versus if you were closer to the guns. If the gun is firing over the bow, nobody's going to be on the bow because you don't want to have something that flies that's like, you know, a huge fireball and a cloud of smoke burning your head. It's like not a fun place to stand if it's firing ahead. There's a ton of stuff over here. So right there is a 5-inch gun mount. This is like the open pedestal mount. This was a shipborne mount still, but it's just a different mount than the twin mount that you've seen on this ship and the single mounts that you've seen on Kid. I don't know what that vehicle is to the left of it, and I don't know what that is there either, but they're both APCs. It is a nice little park. It's a pretty little place. There's pelicans and stuff. There's also like tanks, and I think there's a submarine here. Yeah, right there, you can see a submarine. Behind my head here. And some planes too. Usually though, these ships would not fire over the bow that often, so it wasn't too much of a concern that like they would wreck this stuff there with blast, but it is important that they had space. Some modern ACs working overtime. This is a paravane. It's so that they can... A paravane. This is for mine clearing. Every ship had this if they needed to clear mines. For whatever reason. Most ships carry at least one or two. Usually they're put wherever there's space to put one. Even a battleship can minesweep. So... it's not really meant to. It's not really healthy for it to minesweep. Excuse me. But they can if need be. You can hear the birds here. This is for management of the ship as a museum. You can sit on this mount, I think, and I think they will let you operate it because it looks like it's in good shape. No visitors, don't go in there. It's a very modern office space. Yeah, get out of there, dude. Not for you. Of course there's a computer. Is that was a scary room. With like black walls and just a mop in the middle. That's a scary room. What the hell? Looks like they're making an exhibit in there, probably. So now we're going up into the superstructure. There's a water heater there. I think. I wonder if that would go through the roof if it blew. Hey, I hablo Spanish. Do you know how to decir... Huh? Gotta look up this word. How do they want something in Spanish? Asking if you can speak Spanish for him. I do not speak Spanish, unfortunately. Sorry, bro. I can like kind of read it, but I can't respond back in Spanish at all, reliably. This is for the most part an English stream. But broken English is acceptable. Emulator to speak English or translate nose. Not too much to see yet on the ship. Superstructure. I just do English, but you can stay as long as you like if you want. I just won't be able to read if you speak if you use a Spanish message. So beautiful views of what is this? Mobile, Alabama. Brown water. Hey, here we go. 6-inch gun, another 6-inch gun. I think there's a B-52 over here and a Huey. I understand you, but you do? I guess? I don't know. There's a propeller there. You can also see, oh god, there's a Sherman. And I can't recognize any of these other tanks off the top of my head. But I know that one's a Sherman there. Behind me. There's another tank there. There is a smaller boat there on display. Another propeller. Oh god, B-25 maybe? I think one is a Pershing. That sounds about right. That sounds right. Thank you for watching. Not even going to go into like the main... The... Was it T-29? Oh... Okay, so we gotta find another museum ship real quick, because I didn't actually prepare any in advance of this. Not that it's like a huge deal. Give me just a second. Someone wanted to see an aircraft carrier, so we're gonna go with USS.
Hello, everyone.
This guy talk the whole video.
At the Combat Information Center. Town.
Yeah, he does. Okay, I don't want someone who's talking the whole time. Okay, this works, but we're gonna go fast through it because we don't want to spend too long on this. Just so we get to more museums. But here is USS Yorktown, CV-10. Essex class Yorktown, not the original Yorktown. These carriers tend to have a lot of funding because they are spacey and they can host events and things. But they tend to have a lot more money. And aircraft carriers generally have a little bit more interest in them than battleships for some reason. Probably because they get plane nerds in. And boat nerds. You're not bothering me. I'm just kind of confused, that's all.
Ship's bell.
Ship's bell. That's the original Yorktown's bell from or not the original, but it might be. From 1888. I think the first Yorktown was like 1814? Let's find out. Let's find out on Wikipedia, the free online encyclopedia that anyone can edit. Yeah, that's for the second Yorktown. The first Yorktown is the sloop of war. That sounds right. One of the 6 warships authorized to be constructed by the Congressional Act of 1837. Yep. The second one was a sloop of another sort, I think. During the 1880s. That's the one the bell was from. It was an iron-hulled ship. So inside here, we see some standard markings of an aircraft carrier museum. One being a ton of aircraft on display. But also that classic Navy flight simulator. You go to an aircraft carrier museum, you're gonna see that on there. I don't know if it's any good.
These are some nice planes.
Yeah. This is an aircraft carrier that served way past World War II. They have a ton of stuff on display. I was talking last stream about how museum ships that are aircraft carriers tend to have a lot more exhibit space and just a lot very open floor plan with a lot of like cases and things. So there's like a shotgun there. I don't know what's going on with that, but here's a model of the original configuration of the ship, or rather just the World War II configuration. Was John McCain on this ship? He wasn't on the ship, was he? Is that John McCain's helmet? Jim McCain? I almost thought about Barstraw, so he wasn't even on this ship. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it's some other guy whose last name is Kane. Oh, that might have been the original Yorktown. Maybe? Or Franklin, what? Oh wait, what model, what ship was that a model of then? Does he say? Yorktown CV-10. Weird. Very weird. I don't know who Jim Kane is. Sky Raider, we love the Sky Raider, folks. Freaking awesome airplane. Here we're gonna huff some more boat smell.
Planes until you're standing right next to one.
Ooh, sweet, delicious boat smell. I'm really feeling it. It's got label stuff. Good on him. Thanks for editing your tour video, dude. Oh. It's like whippets for boats. I like that sentence a lot. Boat whippets. There's an artifact from that ship, it appears. What's this one? This is a model of the Japanese aircraft carrier Sorrel. There's a Val, I believe. Torpedo bomber. And some other artifacts from that. So a big thing was like for sailors, they'd have their cute little sailor hats, you know. And so there was like a sash that you would tie around part of it, the part where like it gets thinner or it gets wider again over your head, and you would put the sash on that would say what ship you're on. So this one says like His Imperial Japanese Majesty's ship, Sorrel, something to that extent on it. I don't know if they actually used HIJMS in service or not, actually. I think they used something similar. That just might be like what they use externally or foreign-wise. Japan really just does have a history of really long names for their like Navy prefix. Because now it's just JMSDF. It's so long. There's so many letters. It's not like a USS or like RN, HMS,
Here we got a
AMS. That one's funny to me. Briggs Marine ship. Got like a huge fancy box in front of the ship. How the color is all washed out. What happened to that? There's a Corbinus, it appears. I think that's Corbinus. Yeah, it is. Tiger Cat is your favorite plane. That was almost it. I don't know if the Tiger Cat's going to be on this carrier. Not so sure. Is that a carrier plane? Initially served on the Midway class. Too large to operate from these. Yeah, you're not going to see a Tiger Cat on this ship. It is post World War II, but this carrier was also used way past World War II into like the 70s. The last Essex class to like be disposed of in some way was sunk in the early 2000s. USS Oriskany. There's a SyncX video for it. They turned it into a reef. But this Tiger Cat was, judging from the brief blurb I read on Wikipedia, too big for these old Essexes, and could only be used on carriers of the Midway size and up. Because Midway is a lot bigger than these carriers, by like 15,000 tons or so, I think. They're just too small for the Tiger Cat, but they can accommodate some jets. And apparently space capsules. I have to say, they couldn't put like one on the deck. There's a space shuttle stored on the deck of Intrepid, which is pretty nuts. Hello, Captain Crooked. Welcome, boats. We are currently on the USS Yorktown CV-10. Looking at the Friendship Space Casualty. Friendship 7 Space Capsule. And Apollo 8. Aircraft carriers love to pick these up out of the sea. I just came out of there. I don't know what this is. What bell is this? Oh, okay. The bell from the place that the museum is at. Church. There's a theater on board this ship. That's how big these aircraft carriers are as museums. They're a lot closer to traditional museums, as you can see, than the other ships have been. A lot of the time these aircraft carriers don't let you go into like machinery spaces, but that's like not as interesting on these as it is on battleships. It's like a different niche, you know? Is this every single no, it's not every ship. No, that's what these ships are. There's never a battleship Yorktown. At least not built. Model of the carrier in World War II. Picture of it at the museum. How are you doing today, Crooked? I should probably check my audio levels if it's too messed up. It's functional enough. Down a little bit. Doing alright? Awesome. So this is video feed of, or like part of the video on like the worst monitor ever, because the actual video is at much higher quality than this. Of them finding the first carrier Yorktown sunk at the bottom of the sea following the Battle of Midway. They almost like immediately named the ship after it. Or named another ship with the same name, rather. This is like a battle damage report. These are really cool. I like these a lot. It shows where the damage happened during like I think this is the first Yorktown here. Yeah. So this shows its damage during the Battle of Midway. You can see a bomb hit, torpedo hits, bomb near miss, sending fragments. Some of these are really detailed. This one is a lot less detailed than most. Pictures of the sinking of that Yorktown. A lot of text. A lot of text. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Get this text out of the way. Model plane. So a lot of this museum is dedicated to the first carrier, Yorktown. It's, you know, they share a namesake, a history in a way. Back to the planes. Corsair. This is the Corsair version that has 650 cals, not a version with 20 mils. It really shows you how big a lot of these planes are, because they feel small oftentimes. They look like they're smaller than they are, but they're always huge. I mean, the 82 is massive. Sky Raider. That is a massive aircraft. The wings fold. There's no danger of them getting all wonky during flight. Well, there's a little bit, but if your wings are folding mid-flight, something worse is happening. Jets. One jet at the moment. F9F. History of this individual aircraft is pretty cool. You know the jet pilots on board felt cool. Oh, definitely. That's like the coolest job. When that's like such a new thing. Yeah. I think the F9F is a really nice looking plane too. I don't like this guy's cut transitions at all. Dolphins!
Some dolphins out here.
Got some dolphins out here. Some kind of tour boat. And a barge doing something, God knows what. Some other boat models related to like South Carolina, because I think this is in South Carolina. There's Charleston. Info about it. The ship Charleston. The bell of I don't think it's the same USS Charleston, but a bell of a USS Charleston. Here's some wacky stuff that they put in here. One is this. You know, just a car. This is not normally carried on board an aircraft carrier, at least in this time. They have cars on the carriers now, kind of. Sort of. Quote-unquote cars. More like the airplane baggage cars than anything else. You know, B-25, Mitchell. These planes could theoretically launch one of these with a light load, or have them take off, because they're about the same length as the ones that did the Doolittle raid, almost, sort of. There's Donald Duck on there too. The Walt Disney Company made a lot of stuff for military units and like planes and ships. They would come up with a lot of the artwork for them. The USS Torsk has a logo designed by the Walt Disney Company. Baltimore. This is a cool spot on an aircraft carrier. You can see a destroyer there. This USS Laffey, DD-724. The second USS Laffey that's a destroyer. There's a submarine Clamagore, I think. They did animate some training films, that is correct. But the Fantail's a really cool spot on an aircraft carrier, because it's not a spot that most people realize exists. It's just kind of a little area where the actual main deck is. Which is where most of the hangar stuff is. That's just really where it is at the butt of the ship. Very nice little, space. That's like a good place to smoke. If like I were a sailor and I wanted to smoke, that's where I would smoke. It's on the fantail of the carrier. Don't know if you're supposed to or not. If you're wondering how they got this in here, they got it in through the side flight elevator, which you can see here. It goes to the flight deck. This would not fit on the normal elevator, I don't think. And normally they were not stored inside, although they would fit. I think your Tiger Cat has a slightly longer runway requirement than the B-25 does. By being, I think, lighter and more powerful. That, or they just didn't want to run them from the back of the deck all the way to the front. That would suck. Yep, Doolittle Raid. Wait, did I say this plane took part in the Doolittle Raid? Yo, that's awesome! What the hell? That's so cool. That is a cool aircraft. Taking part in the Doolittle Raid? Awesome. That's so cool. I should go down there. I should go down. You should go there, Azure Rats. You said you're in Florida. It's not that far. It's only like a 5-hour drive. That's worth it as a day trip. Get up in the morning, drive to the boats, visit the boats, go home. Air traffic control. I think Patriots Point needs money pretty bad, in particular because Laffey keeps leaking. But Laffey is known as the ship that refuses to die, so that's good on it. It was hit by like 5 bombs and like 4 kamikazes one day, and managed to make it home, get repaired, and continue serving long after World War II. And still has leaks occasionally and lists to this day and gets fixed. Ship does not want to die. I think like a third of the ship's crew unfortunately died during those kamikaze and bomb attacks. Like it was like a really bad amount of damage. But the ship bounced back. Kind of incredible they didn't write it off as a loss after all that damage. It's not like a destroyer is super, not replaceable. Here we go. So here's some modern planes. I don't know if this can launch all of them, but they're here. More spacer planes on deck. God, I don't know what that's called. Is that a Sea King? Sea Stallion? Sea King, yeah, first guess was right. I've been working on my modern aircraft. I've been working on it, so I'm happy I got that right. On one of my 2 guesses, and the first one especially. I don't know what that jet is. I have no idea what the hell that is. It's got a front intake, I think. Sky Warrior? Okay. Yeah, I don't know that one at all. That is a weird plane, I'm gonna be honest. Oh, it is just the nose. It just looks like a pig. Yeah, I don't know this guy. Various aircraft to operate from an aircraft carrier. Strategic bomber. Oh yeah, that'll do it. And it was replaced by ballistic missile subs, which are much more epic than using carrier aircraft for that purpose. Hey, I know that one, I just can't recognize it. Keep that aerial refueling nozzle. Corsair 2. Long tube. Look at those gun ports. There's a cannon there next to that helicopter on the right. You can see it there behind me. Actually, it might not be a cannon. It might be a rifle muzzle loader. Look at that. F-14. Yeah! He cut me off, but I was right. That's not an F5, that's an F4 next to it, I think. F4? Not in the best shape. Give it a good paint job, please. Patriots point. Poor Tomcat needs a paint job. You want to pet whatever the little jet was on the right of the Tomcat? Me too. From Kitty Hawk, Shitty Kitty. Much later aircraft carrier that can actually accommodate this plane. Because it is significantly heavier. There's no way in hell that this could take off from a World War II aircraft carrier. Definitely land on it, though. Those dudes who wave stuff around. 5-inch gun mount. This is like the one that we saw off on shore at the Alabama Museum. Some kind of radar system. Oh god. Yeah, okay. I would not have been able to remember that. But S2 tracker. Beautiful plane. I like this plane a lot. Cool plane. Whoa, my phone just went crazy. Incoming spam detected. Yeah, that wasn't real. Superstructure. Did they actually let you go in there? Well, I guess they did at Intrepid. F-18, look at him. 110% does not take off from a World War II aircraft carrier. Would never work. It's also missing its engines entirely. The Navy, I presume, took them out. E6? Then E4. That's an F4 right there. Yep.
This is a nice one.
I love its little pointy wingtips.
F4J Phantom 2.
Good job reading it from that far, dude. Butterfly. That E1B. Big old radar plane thing. Chunky, big chungus. Big chungus.
And I have made it both sides of the flight deck of this huge ship. I knew the ship was going to be huge, but man.
Isn't the place for you, butterfly? It is now. We're at peace. Let the butterfly be where at least it likes to be. Time for some more boat smell huffing. Oh. That's the good. Oh, that is the good stuff. One more.
Man, my feet are killing me. Climbing up all of these stairs.
I love the huff boat smell. Bomb hit. Admiral C cabin.
Chief of Staff. His quarters.
He still gets a pretty small room.
Admiral
Doesn't
C
look as good as
cabin.
the battleship rooms that we saw earlier, I think. Or the ones on Belfast. The ones on Belfast for the officers are pretty nice. Being in the Royal Navy doesn't suck if you're an officer. Plotting room.
Radar scope.
Oh, yeah, it says that there. Awesome clocks.
And I think this is a steering house.
It is.
I think that's what it's called. Here's the wheel. Or helm.
You're gonna point the camera out the window at all? No? Okay. Well, here we are at navigation level.
Navigational instruments.
I talked about this before. Highline transfer. That's where like you could also use those things that were stretchers for,
Here we
and you could
are
also
in
send
the
stretchers over
captain's
that.
bridge.
Like if a destroyer couldn't accommodate its wounded, they might send them to an aircraft carrier to be treated, because an aircraft carrier is much more capable since it has so much more space.
And here's the captain's chair.
Yep. Sounds right. There's the other flight deck thing. Canted deck.
Just left the bridge. Now let's see where else this pathway takes me.
Well, you're still on the bridge, dude. You're just now in like a wind tunnel. Good view of the helicopter deck installed on Laffy Post 4. I like this guy. I like the I like this funny little character over here. What's his story? What a silly little guy. What a goofy little
Back down into the
little
deck.
fellow. They installed escalators in this ship post-war. They're not operational on the museum, but they can switch directions. But there is an escalator. I think they bolted, if I remember correctly, they tore off the side of the superstructure and then they just bolted on an escalator. There used to be an elevator there, apparently. I think it said that. Boom station for fire control, or damage control. Fire control, literal fire control.
Here we go.
Expansive hospital. Smaller ships can send injured crewmen here. What I was talking about before. Scary mannequin in a medical space again. X-ray room. Bacteria lab, that's cool. There's a funny little character on the floor that you didn't point the camera at. And the mannequins fucked you up. They're on most museum ships. If you've been to Yorktown, then yes. But most museum ships have. As it turns out. I think only like 1 or 2 of them that we've looked at so far haven't had it. Quiet room. Baby boy goes to quiet room. Oh, there goes the garage door. I don't like the medical spaces. So I'm just gonna go like this. This space always creep me out because they have like green paint always. Is that Taz the Tasmanian Devil? Is that a minion? Alright, chat. We gotta make a poll here. New poll. Minion or Taz? Minion? Taz. Alright, guys. Vote now. Vote now. Is it a minion? Oh, it's behind me. Let's let him swing it around. Is that a minion or is it Taz? Or could it possibly be even a monkey? Might not even be either of these things. On Tour 1 guide. We have so far we have one vote saying minion. A single vote. I think it might actually be a monkey. Interesting, very interesting. Two voters saying minion. So we're gonna roll with minion over anything else. Scary ass. Alright, minion won the vote. They have minions guiding the tours on this ship. Medical office. Medical office, medical office, medical office, medical office, medical office. Ooh. Is that NS Savannah I see in the center of the room?
Nice models.
I'll say. There's that cute plane, I think. There's a Ticonderoga class, don't know which one. There's a, excuse me, garage door user. Bunch of other models. That's a rare model of the duck on the right. We love the duck. USS Ward, and I assume a different USS Ward? No? Maybe not? I think these are at different scales. Something tells me these ships are at different scales. Catalina. Phantom again. Planes. Lots of planes. We're gonna skip the planes. Give me the boats. This is NS Savannah, right? Yeah, she's in Baltimore. I don't know if you can currently tour this ship, but it is in Baltimore. If you want to see it at all. It's also next to a World War II Liberty ship, but this is a nuclear-powered cargo ship. Very, very big brain. Cool ship, very cool ship. Kind of a bit of an overkill thing for a cargo ship, in my opinion. Which is why that wasn't like an idea that caught on very hard. It's not as easy as like having enough like diesels in you to run like 12 knots for 20,000 miles. It's a flight deck model. Used a little bit.
Here is a really nice model.
Ooh, that is. Very nice. The big scale models are always great. Look at all the 25mm gun mounts. So many. So dog poop gun mount. Dog poop gun mount so much. Of gun mount dog poop. Yamato factoid. This is where some of the boats on the ship were stored for like getting on and off as like the captain or crew to go ashore. That's what like this weird thing is on the side. That's like a thing not a lot of people know about. I'm not sure how they get down into the water exactly, but you can see one of the boats there. Oh, I can steam. By accident. There's a 16-inch shell. Oh god, I can't tell which standard that is.
In here.
Arizona? Is that what he said? Tennessee. But you can see here, there's like a bajillion different like exhibit spaces on this ship compared to most of the other ships that we've gone to on this museum ship tour. Very nice model of Iowa, though I would go for darker color of gray than that's personally. I think that would look a little bit nicer, but it might not be entirely accurate. To be fair. South Dakota. Oh, it's the South Dakota class, not the Alabama class. What was I thinking? My bad, chat. I kept screwing that up. Arizona. Very similar ship to Tennessee. Map of Pearl Harbor. With full mini models throughout. That's neat. Battleship route. There's a Colorado class. And he's moving the camera too fast for me to tell the other ones, but... Yep. Okay, we are going to skip ahead just a little bit. Now for a ride on the flight simulator.
There we go. Flight simulator.
Welcome aboard this Flight Avionics Flight Simulator. Hold on tightly. There's no smoking, drinking,
Oh, this isn't one of the one that's like a video game. This is one of the ones where you take the ride, I think.
Familiarize yourself with the location of the emergency stop lines.
It's not like a video game. Derelict ship. CDN 74.
On the flight deck, time for the 1445 launch. Pilots, man your aircraft. Flight
Which
deck
one's
personnel, no
CDN
exhaust.
74?
Jet intakes and exhausts. Stand clear of all starting.
John C. Stennis?
Default Badger 310 up and ready. Roger, Badger. Pilots, as we get to the joint exercise, screening Eagle. These are targets.
I think I've seen this before. This ride. I haven't been on it though. I don't think anyway.
Departure Badger 310 airborne. Roger, Badger.
Do not do that. Do not buzz the other ships in the... There should be more space between the aircraft carrier's flight deck and the other ships in the fleet. Bad, bad, bad.
Switch to
You don't want to accidentally kamikaze your friendlies.
As your no mission change, make sure you line up your targets at every shot. Badger in hot. Great shot, Badger. Badger, thank you for joining us to the Candy Pass. We have 11 targets, weapons free. Roger, Stingray.
Okay.
Stingray, Viper's joined. Roger, Viper.
Dangerous ass maneuvers, dude.
Stingray, this is Nassau. Got a bogey identified as a Russian bear bomber at 12 o'clock, 5 miles, east of Sorrel.
Bro just barely missed his other pilots. Chill on that.
Roger, Manzo. Badger's attached and intercept the bear. Roger, Stingray.
Climbing. That is a Tupolev. Whoa. Bro's really good at slowing down suddenly. It perfectly matched the speed of a TU-4.
Roger, Badger. You have another bogey, 10 o'clock close.
Scary.
Roger, Stingray. Bogey in sight. Stingray, I'm trying to lock up. Roger, Badger.
This is real War Thunder gaming.
Steady. Locked up, signaling to Fox 2. Badger's at Signal Fuel, new Texaco. Roger, Texaco. One fuel, Texaco.
Whoa. What's really done on Wikipedia? Days. Okay. I think we're gonna look at one more boat. So it'll take me a minute to find that. Try this one. This is an official tour video, which is tempting, but I didn't know these guys run a YouTube channel, actually. Let me check that out real quick. I haven't done a video for a while. That sucks. Any good tours? 360. SoCal, this is in Baltimore. Not a 360 video. So we're doing the USS Torsk now, right next to the National Aquarium in Baltimore. I don't think they have the shark's teeth painted on her anymore. I think they painted over that for whatever reason.
Attention! To ensure your safety, please turn and face all ladders. Adults should go down ladders before children.
This guy's based like me. He doesn't face any ladders. Not an exit. Here's the some interesting stuff about the conditions on board a submarine. These are the most cramped of like all ships. You can see here's the torpedo tubes on the stern. Yes, they have ones on the front and back on these World War II ones. World War II submarines. Spare torpedoes on the side. In spaces that can also be, in some cases, oh, maybe not here, on the bow. These can also be bunks, where these torpedo tubes are. Here's a bathroom. Very small bathroom. It only fits one. Not that there's as much crew as you would need to have a ton of bathrooms on the submarine. Here's a room where you manage like all the machinery in the submarine. Ton of levers, dials, gauges, everything you would ever want to stare at and be confused by. Information table that would have been used for plotting, probably, at some point. You'll notice that the watertight compartments are much smaller, or the doors for them, watertight doors, than on the other ships. You have to really squeeze in there.
They would only surface together. They'd like, you know, get the oxygen and replenish them.
These are, I believe, train engines. Diesel train engines. Yep. Fairbanks Morse. Usually for trains. In this case, they are powering a submarine. There are 4 of them in the Torsk class. I believe it's the Torsk class. Hench class, excuse me. My bad.
Everybody's gone past you already. There's a radio.
More machinery space, I think. What? You can see the other easels there.
I see you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's all kinds of, you know,
Hi, Sammy.
Lots of screaming children and stuff, you know. A wide space where there's, I think this is for kitchen and stuff. A lot of it opens up unless you put down stuff to cook. I don't think you're supposed to open these. Oh, it might be a shower, actually. Yeah, it looks like a shower. Never mind. So, other bathroom space. Yeah, crew washroom. My bad. Bunks.
But all our stuff was stored over there, and also the bunk bags that hung on the rails. Okay. I still have my bunk bag.
Do you really?
Pretty wide. Takes up the whole width of the ship here.
Question about the stripes.
Yeah.
They're asking a guide or something about stuff. There's the ship's logo here. Am I in the way of this on stream? Let me see. No. Okay, this was drawn by the Walt Disney Company. I mentioned it before.
What do they signify? Years?
Okay.
I think next week, after I come back from Otakon, I'm going to do some more boat streams, but they might just be watch-alongs of other videos that are more narrated by like museum staff. And like news footage, historical news videos, things like that. I think that would be cool. But today we're sticking to museum walkthroughs. Here's the kitchen. Look at that. Pretty small. We're in Baltimore, but it doesn't seem like there's any Old Bay to be found, unfortunately. No ice cream machine, you'll note. Not a luxury afforded to submarines, unfortunately. I think that's the sonar room to our left. No, radio room. Radio room. This submarine was updated in the 50s, so it is not in its World War II configuration entirely. But most of the machinery and stuff is the same. Don't touch that, stop!
No, I'm not coming in, but...
There's the periscope on a digital monitor, so they just have that camera up there. These adjust the ballast of the submarine, I'm pretty sure. That's what those are for. So you can see out into the harbor on that Panasonic screen.
Whoa. Cameron, don't get too far ahead of it. Cameron?
We're entering the bougie part of the ship. Where we can find like some officer spaces where things work. You see wood paneling. That's how you know you're in the cool part of the submarine. Modern submarines aren't all that different from this. They're just kind of a lot cleaner looking. Well, it's not like cleaner lines, not like cleaner. Now that is a nice room for this submarine. You even have your own foldable toilet.
Excuse me. Dad, I'm right here.
I think that's a toilet that folds.
Oh, yes. But he didn't come.
Officer's mess. Teeny tiny. Bunch of things that fold out for storage. There is a model of the ship in here somewhere. I don't know if you can see it. More bunks for the junior officers. Pretty comfy looking compared to most of the other places we've seen, actually. But it's on a submarine again. That's kind of a scary place to be. I guess they took the model out at some point. But there used to be a model of the course. Another little kitchen space. Dishwashing space. Space. It's clanking around on stuff.
I know, there are more beds. Keep coming.
Sonar
right,
room. There we go.
Find Grandpa. Why not? What do you mean you can't? Just go and say say Josh needs you to come now.
Really annoyed parents with their kids who won't follow directions. That's the museum experience, baby. I feel like I'd be less freaked out in a sub than on the boat. Yeah, but on a sub, there's like the fear that like a mechanical failure could just cause your ship to implode and like all of your guts would explode out of you and you die instantly. I don't know if that's something that's as fun as being on a top side. Here's the 4 torpedo tubes, FORE.
No, Mason. Will I let this guy through?
There are bunks here. Pretty sure.
No.
Or maybe they were in the aft section and we just didn't see them on camera. But the space where these torpedoes are can also be bunks, I'm pretty sure. There's a bunk above it, on the right there. And on the left over here. Because they have to put bunks wherever they can still. But there's not a lot of places where they can, so bunks would be oftentimes shared. Someone would sleep there half the day, someone would sleep the other half. Big fear is being out in the sea, so I take instant death over rational fear of sea creatures. That's fair. That's fair enough. I would much rather be on a boat with space. I'd be on a battleship if anywhere. I don't want to feel cramped all the time. As much as I love being on boats. Let's huff some boat smell again. Time to huff some more boat smell. There's the bridge. Tiny little space. It sucks trying to take pictures of this. Nobody's in there while the ship is underwater. What are you gonna have to work on a nuclear submarine in the Navy, but too stressed out to take it? Understandable. I think it's scary. And it sucks because you never get to be home or anything. Star Citizen. $2 billion submarine kitchen. We're gonna look through this. And then we're gonna find our raid target. Because that has been 2.5 hours.
They get a
and it's gonna be dinner time.
Meal. How they appreciate that. That's what keeps
this looks good.
Crew, moving forward.
Usually they have canned food, but I think for a while sometimes they have not canned food. They have the good stuff on these subs. Not always.
Food
this is not
sure
entirely
makes it
accurate.
all the better for all of us.
That fresh bread.
Have you ever wondered where do Navy sailors on long deployment get their food in the middle of the ocean?
The kitchen does not cost $2 billion.
Or how is food prepared 500 feet below the sea surface? For the men and women of the of dedicated men and women that make up the Navy.
A lot of stock footage
around
in here.
the world. Meticulous planes are provided. Army
strawberries,
is then
baked beans.
The menu needs to be planned and approved by dietitians. The menu needs to be planned and approved by dietitians registered with U.S. Naval Supply Systems Command. Pre-deployment material on the scale.
The supply chain, don't care. This isn't a submarine mess, is it? I don't think it's this
crew
open.
members.
I might be wrong, but I don't think it's this open in the new subs.
Paired
I might be wrong, but I have a feeling it's not so open. This is, most of these shots aren't in submarines.
Replenish.
Because I watched yeah, this is what it's like in a submarine.
The submarine carries typically about
that was way too big. But this is a submarine.
And it is
that
stored
at this is the submarine
under
kitchen.
typically about 15,000 pounds of food, and it is stored at any available space beneath the
This is the kitchen in the nuclear submarine.
seats, behind pipes, under decks.
That's the nuclear submarine kitchen.
The meals are prepared in a 10 by 14-foot galley, equipped with all the high-tech gadgets to feed the 130 crew working on board.
That's about, oh, burgers, submarine burger, yeah. Does it cook longer?
Between
take
6
longer to
to
cook?
8 culinary specialists.
Yeah, put the egg
turns to
on
prepare
there.
Meals for the crew on
Or the
board.
butter. Is it butter or is it
works around
egg?
the
I
clock.
think it's egg. Soft tacos.
Since there is no window, there is no telling when it is time for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So the menu is rotated every few weeks.
Yummy, nummy. That looks good. Look at that pizza. God forbid they serve beans. Oh, they do.
The mess deck has narrow tables.
This is this is the submarine mess.
And it is a tight squeeze for the 34 crew it can accommodate at a time.
That bread looks so good.
So food is served buffet style, so the crew can eat as much as they want in 15 minutes before the next group comes in for their meal.
That pizza does not look great, but I'd eat it. The 2-foot shoulder span would not like this mess. No, it would not. That would suck.
There's not much luxury,
But they usually only put
privacy,
short
or
people on
comfort
submarines,
living inside a
as long as you're not
360-foot long and
short,
33-foot wide vessel.
you should be alright. They tend to put smaller
So
people on
food
there for
has
that
a
reason.
significant morale impact on the submariners. Mealtime is a time for
I
them
think
to
these submarines are a
socialize and
little
enjoy
bit more
freshly
accepting
made
than
hot
in the
meals,
past, but,
which can
you
at
know.
times make them feel at home. Not just to them, but to every man and woman that serves the U.S. Navy in long deployment worldwide.
Neat, is that it?
Overcoming and
Is that what they call normal milk? They just call it white milk? What? 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 Dude, this whole 4 years in the Navy overweight. Yeah, you can get away with that.
overcoming obstacles.
What ship was he on? What kind of ship was he on? There's nothing like wrong with that.
After all, the food doesn't just
You don't,
fuel the
yeah,
energy.
you don't have to be like
but it is
fit,
a morale booster
honestly,
for the sailors of the
doing
naval
stuff
force.
aboard ships. Hardly a requirement.
That's the end of this video. I hope.
What was it? What was it? Under. Typhoon. The Russian Typhoon class submarine. At least at one point, this is nuts.
But not even Jules Verne pictured life like this at the bottom of the sea.
This is on like propaganda stuff, I think, since this is like a Soviet
As the
video.
world's biggest submarine,
Originally,
the Typhoon deserves the
got a
traditional
rowing machine.
nickname of the floating hotel.
This is a huge submarine, by the way. These things are huge compared to like every
In
other
its
sub ever.
atmosphere of a comfortable, if slightly dated health club, it's easy to
It
forget
was an arcade
its
machine. That is a
deadly
Soviet
purpose.
arcade machine. There's a sauna. There's a swimming pool? This submarine comes with a swimming pool.
It's one way of maintaining
with like the grossest, like, greenest water of all time.
crew morale, despite very low pay, uncertainty about the future, and poor conditions at home.
The grimiest,
Despite all his
grimiest swimming pool.
Even Captain Zhiguliov earns only a few dollars a month.
We have birds and fish on board? They kissed in the brown Soviet submarine pool water. This is the most, like, made-up propaganda. This is not even on the submarine.
And then there's the traditional fringe benefit of the nuclear submariner.
Maybe it is, but this is huge space. So here, because this is a much larger submarine
to feed
than the
its
American
civilian
ones.
population, but it clearly
You can see how much more crew they can fit in the mess hall at a
of
time.
the submarine force.
Hi, Ina. Hello, Ina.
Taking care of the submarine force. May be finding it hard
Oh my God,
to feed its
yeah.
civilian
They got Tom and
population,
Jerry.
but it clearly attaches importance
That was Tom and Jerry on there.
to taking
go
care
back.
feed its civilian population,
there he is, Tom
but
and
it
Jerry.
clearly
Silly. So that is all of our time for now, since I do have to eat dinner soon. I'm gonna get yelled at if I don't get down in time. So we'll do another boat stream in the near future. Probably after Otakon. This is my last stream before Otakon. That is a portal through time. You're absolutely right. The whole video is. I don't know if they still have a swimming pool on these subs. You're welcome for stream. You're welcome for stream. We'll be back and do more boat stuff soon. I really like doing this kind of React content. Look at Otakon. Thank you. Work is done. I like this kind of React Andy stream. These are good React Andy streams. Better than average. It's informative, and that's awesome. Very awesome that it's informative. Last stream until when? Until I get home from Otakon. So, I might stream like probably not next Tuesday. I might stream, well, I could do this next Tuesday. But it'll probably be sometime next week is the next stream. I think I have a collab that week too with Cheese Biscuits. I think that week. Might be later. I need to double check, but not super important to remember now. And I'll also start using schedules. I'll start using schedules again soon. Because I've not been doing that for like a while. Sorry, my bad. Anyway, let us find our raid target. Oh, I just clicked on the stream by accident. We will raid one. I'll raid Eeny, meeny, miny. Elliot. We're raiding Elliot. We're raiding Elliot Ambers. Our raid message is here is the raid message. All right, see you guys next week. Thank you guys for coming. Awesome stream, boats. Yes. This is the future of Sorrel. Finally doing boat content. Yes, yes, sir. Bye bye. See you at Otakon, maybe.